everyone. I have a tip to share with you today. It's a money-saving tip. In the end, it is anyway. All right, so I am making, all right, how do I explain this? I have a Shark Duo floor cleaner. It's an electric floor cleaner. And it has these pads that go on the bottom of them. And in order to buy more pads, they're really expensive. And I decided I'm going to make my own pads to go on the bottom. And I want to do it in the hoop. So I digitized my own little pad. And I've been making them. And I really wanted to not hoop a whole big piece of stabilizer and waste all of that stabilizer around the outside, right? You get what I'm saying? So I've done this before where I've made a window and I've put the stabilizer in the middle of it. But I came across a really good thing to use for the window so that I can just put my piece of stabilizer in the middle of it, okay? And I found a good way to do this. So what I need to use for my stabilizer is Wet and Gone. So that, because I need to be able to, I can't leave the stabilizer on there. It has to disappear once I'm done with it. I have to be able to see the back of this pad, okay? So I needed to use Wet and Gone. Well, I don't want to cut a whole big piece of Wet and Gone. I just want my Wet and Gone, because it's expensive, to be this big. That's about how big my pad is, okay? So what I'm using is called Tyvek. This is Tyvek, all right? Tyvek is like indestructible paper, okay? So they make mailers out of Tyvek. So lots of times you get stuff in the mail, like if you buy fabric and it comes in the mail and it comes in that stuff you can't rip open, that's Tyvek. Here's a little tip. You could start saving those and open them up so that they're flat. You could use those on your smaller hoops. But for bigger hoops, you'd probably need to purchase some. Now, this actually came from the neighbor's house. She left and I cleaned it. And this was left in the house. And I ended up with it. This actually says, and I don't know if I can open it up big enough for you to see, probably not. If I open up this really big, it says home wrap on it. So I've seen this on the side of buildings, on the side of homes that they're building, and it does say home wrap. So they actually use this in construction, and you can buy it at Home Depot. I saw that on the internet. You can buy it on eBay. If you were to buy a really big roll, they're kind of expensive, but you can buy it by the foot. You could get just enough to use. I don't know, I think it was like 3 feet. This would be a 3 feet by 20 feet for like $20. And that would last you a long time. So that's what Tyvek is. They used to make fishing licenses out of this stuff. I remember my dad's fishing license was white. I don't know if they're making them out of the same stuff. You still can't rip them, but we used to get a big kick out of trying to rip my dad's fishing license. We never could do it. In fact, I think he told us he'd give us $20 if we could rip it. Never got $20. Anyway, all right, so what I want to show you is how you can make a window in the Tyvek with your machine and not have to hand sew this in. It's sewn in there. I actually sewed it in on my machine using a basting stitch, okay? So let me take this one out. I'm gonna hoop another piece of Tyvek and I'm gonna show you how I did this. Okay, Tyvek hooped. All right, so now I'm gonna put this in my machine. Probably a bigger piece than I needed. That's okay. All right. Now, what you want to do, you want to put a basting stitch around your design. Okay, so I'm going to go into my thing here and I'm going to put a basting stitch around there. Now I have a basting stitch. I'm going to go into embroidery here. And I am going to go ahead and stitch that out on the Tyvek. All right. Now I have regular thread in my machine because what I'm making, I'm stitching with regular thread. I'm not using embroidery thread, so you probably noticed that I have regular thread in my machine. I want regular thread in there, okay? All right, now, my thing that I'm making, the next step is a placement stitch, and it is actually the outside. That is the furthermost edge of my design. So if you're making something else, you're going to have to figure out how big is my design. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch the next step because that is the furthest, the biggest part of my design. That will tell me how big my piece of stabilizer needs to be. Actually, that will tell me how, it will tell me the size of the stabilizer that I need to cut, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out. It's kind of hard to explain until I actually show you. So we'll let it stitch out. Beautiful. Okay, so now you can see, here's my basting stitch. Here's where my design is, okay? What I want to do is I want to cut in between my basting stitch and my design, okay? So you want to make sure that when you're doing this, that you leave enough room. If you have to make your basting stitch bigger, make your basting stitch bigger. I know that this is perfect for what I'm doing. I'm the right size. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to cut this out and make a window. I'm going to go right in between there and cut it. And then I'm going to get a piece of stabilizer that is bigger than my basting stitch all the way around, and I'm going to tape it on there and bring it back to the machine. Okay, so I'm cutting inside here and I'm cutting a piece of stabilizer bigger than my basting stitch, and I'll show you why in a little bit. Okay, so bigger than the basting stitch. I'll be right back. Window. Okay, so I cut it out inside my basting stitch. Okay, now here is my piece of wet and gone. It's a lot smaller than a piece of stabilizer, and you wouldn't cut a piece of stabilizer that much bigger, but it does need to be bigger than your hoop, and that's a lot of waste. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this in place inside my hoop. Not much room for me to do it here, but I'm going to do it anyway. Medical tape is just all I use. You don't need a lot. I'm going to do it on each corner and make sure that you get it taut. You know, don't make a bubble in the middle because otherwise you're defeating the purpose of stabilizer. Okay, it's to stabilize. You want it taut like you had it in the hoop. Otherwise, it doesn't work that great. Okay, let me turn it around. A couple more pieces here. I'm going to tape each corner and the sides. So pull it a little bit. Tape it down. Two more little pieces. Like so. All right. Now, I can pull this up just a little bit. I see a little small bubble. All right, there we go. Okay, it's now taped in. So now what you want to do is go back. Back to the basting stitch, okay? Put your hoop back in. This is what is going to sew your piece of stabilizer. So you put your hoop in right now. This is what's going to sew your piece of stabilizer. Goodness gracious. Into your window. Okay, so now back to the beginning. And it's sewing right back over that first line, that first basting stitch. Now, if you are doing something really stitch intensive, windows are not the way to go, just so you know that, okay? But if you're doing, something like this little mop pad that doesn't have, 10 billion stitches in it, this works great. Okay. Now I'll take it out and show it to you. All right, look at that. Sewn in. All on your machine. You didn't have to switch over to sewing. Nothing. It's in there. So then you would continue. I would make my little pad, and when you're done, you just snip the basting and pull the whole thing out of the window. And then when you're ready to make another one, you just go back, you tape a new piece in, and start over. As long as you don't move anything, as long as you don't move your design and you don't take this out of the hoop, you could probably put it back in with the camera, but as long as you don't move anything, you could just keep going and keep making pad after pad after pad, which was my plan. So, pretty cool. Working great. So, all right. I guess I have to utilize my pads and go clean the floor. Have a great day.